Hi Adrian, this museum here for Mad Max is absolutely wonderful here at Silverton. Can you tell us a bit about how you got into this?
Well, this started 30 years ago when I was 18, and I was a happy-go-lucky chap, and I got dragged along to the cinema to see Mad Max and Mad Max 2 when Mad Max 2 was released in England. I didn't know anything about the films, anything at all, so I went to the cinema and I was absolutely blown away. I emerged from the cinema a different person. It completely changed my life. I wanted to know so much about who'd made these films, who were the actors, where was it filmed. Anyway, eventually years passed and we managed to come here on holiday. Yeah, that was in 2004, and we visited the sites of the first film. And then we came out here to Broken Hill in Silverton, and I fell in love with the place that much. I wanted to live here, which is what we did 6 years ago, and I'd always had this idea of doing some kind of display or museum because I think it needed something like this here.
Absolutely.
And that's how this started, that's how the museum started. Now, I didn't have all these things, vehicles and bits and pieces and props, apart from a couple of the vehicles. I have to say that one of the Interceptors I did build in England 10 years ago now, and I brought it back to Australia with me.
Was it made from original parts?
Oh yes, so everything came from Australia. Yeah,
right.
When I bought it, it's an Australian car, an Australian hardtop coupe. Two-door coupe, and everything was original as possible. I wanted, because at the time I didn't know I was going to be moving over here to Australia. So
right.
Anyway, so that's what happened. I decided to do something. The problem was I didn't have everything I have now.
Yes.
People got to hear about me, and they were so generous. They came forward with things, photographs, and not everything in here, not all the vehicles belong to me. A lot of the original stuff is on loan to me.
Yes.
A lot of the bits and pieces, props that are around, I've found.
Right.
It's just fantastic. This must be one of the only films, Mad Max 2, where you can still go out to locations, and if you're lucky enough, and you kick about in the dirt, you will find bits and pieces that are left from the film, and you know.
That's incredible. That's here in Silverton and the surrounds.
Yes, all around Broken Hill and in Silverton. Yeah, I mean, there probably wouldn't be too much left now. I mean, I think I've probably exhausted the areas
yes.
of fossicking, but it's great to think that this stuff is preserved on the ground or in the dirt, and all these years later you can find a piece. I mean, to me it's like finding a piece of gold. You know, when
yes.
I find just a tiny piece from this film. You know, it's such a huge film now, and it put Australia on the map, certainly for a lot of us outside of Australia. It was a film that really shook Hollywood up. It made them, sit up and take notice of how action films should be made, and it was groundbreaking.
Yes.
There's something very special about Australian cinema, and it's hard to put your finger on what it is, but whatever it was, that's what grabbed a hold of me, and certainly thousands of other people that really are or really appreciate the Mad Max movies. You know,
yes.
they were original. They set a standard for movie making that today has never been equalled. You know, back when the first Mad Max was made, and certainly the second one as well. Byron Kennedy, the producer, was kind of heavily involved with the stunts, and he was really the guy behind. He was a petrol head. He was the guy behind the muscle cars.
Right.
And it appealed to a generation of rev heads.
Yes,
because of the Australian car culture being as big as it was in the 70s and 80s.
Absolutely.
It appealed to those people. Well, unfortunately, in 1983, Byron was killed in his helicopter, the helicopter that they had on set here.
Right.
It came down it crashed in a creek in the Warragamba Dam, and he was killed. But he had been in early discussions with George Miller, his filmmaking partner, in relation to a third film.
Yes.
And I think the studios were pushing heavily for another sequel. But to be honest, I think it was more about making a successful film to make money rather than the joys of filmmaking, I think. But that's
yes.
my opinion. But the problem with the third film is it lost its way because you couldn't relate to anything.
Yes.
Because Byron had gone, George was kind of, I suppose in a way, was working a little bit blind, and he ended up co-directing the film with George Ogilvy, and of course incorporating the muscle cars and the Aussie car culture into these two films is what made them successful.
Yeah.
And of course when Byron was gone, I suppose in a way those ideas that Byron would have had for the third film went with him, and what influenced him to make that film. And I think it goes back to the exploitation days as well, but also George worked in the accident and emergency units.
Yes,
and
that's
he saw
right.
firsthand the carnage and damage that's done to some motorcycle riders and people in car crashes and that kind of thing. So he did that short film, The Violence in the Cinema. I mean, by this time he'd met Byron Kennedy at film school.
Yes.
And he knew straight away that Byron was talented and had these great ideas. I mean, Byron was making home movies far better than big companies were making films back then.
Yes.
So they teamed up together, and of course they had this great idea for this film,
Yep.
which of course was Mad Max. You know, but they didn't have enough funding for it, really. You know.
No.
It was, but I think the reason that it worked so well is because they didn't have the money. It was all about the fun of making films.
Yes, on a low
And
budget.
they had this great film and a great idea for this film. I mean, the idea, to be honest, had been done to death before. I mean,
Yes.
it's not an original idea, but when you incorporate all the elements of the first film, from the characters to the vehicles, and certainly the locations around, well, it was filmed around Geelong.
That's right.
It was perfection. You know, it was the same when they came out here to do this film. You know,
Yeah.
and that's really. The result of their partnership way back when they met was really the Mad Max movies. You know, that was really what you know what really you could see what they produced from this great partnership that they'd had. You know.
Yes, the ideas and learning to improvise.
Well, when Byron was killed, I think George said at some point it felt like he'd had his right arm removed.
I see.
So, but. Yes, it was a sad time. It makes you wonder exactly what the Australian film industry would be like today if Byron would still been alive, you know.
Yes, it could have been somewhere in a different place.
Yeah.
What can you tell us a bit about Mad Max 4? That I understand they were going to shoot it here, but apparently the landscape was too green at the time. It's now being shot in Africa.
Yeah, they came out here in 2010 to start pre-production. They brought all the vehicles out to test and that kind of thing, but they need a very arid and dry landscape. I mean, to the point where they don't want one blade of grass. I mean, it really has to be dry. And a lack
Yes.
of water. There has to be. It's got to look like there's a lack of water. I think that's an integral part of the story as well. But we got to meet some great people. I mean, George Miller's wife and two sons came to see us. We had Guy Norris, who worked on this film. He's the stunt coordinator for the new film. We had a lot of the crew through, very talented people.
Fantastic.
And we got to see a lot. Yeah, we got to see a lot of the things and what have you. But of course, it wasn't to be. I think the Aussie dollar probably played a big part
Yes.
as well. And they cancelled production at the end of last year. At the back end of 2011, they came back, picked all the vehicles up, shipped them over to the west coast of Namibia, a national park there, and that's where they're now filming now. They started to film, I think it was at the beginning of July, and they're still filming now. I think they're filming, up to December.
Yes.
But yeah, it's in full swing. There's a few photos have leaked from Africa, and yeah, I think it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be up there with the big films. It's going to be a huge blockbuster. I mean,
Yes.
they've got two very amongst the other actors. They have two very talented actors. Tom Hardy, who really is still an up and coming actor, but very talented, and of course Charlize Theron is wonderful in everything she's in. So,
Fantastic.
so it's just going to be, it'll be great, and it'll be, even though it's going to be filmed in Africa, it'll be still great to think that this new generation of moviegoers will be introduced to the original Mad Maxes, which of course
Are iconic.
Iconic and a huge part, not just of the Australian film history, but a huge part of Australia's history now. I mean, Mad Max is now synonymous with Australia. I mean, it
Yes.
goes hand in hand. And Max is a universal character. So
Yes.
it appeals to everybody. And that's, if I can just add as well, that it's all ages we get through here.
Yeah.
Appreciate Max, from the youngsters to the seniors. Everybody's heard of Mad Max. I mean, not everybody may agree with what it does, but everybody's heard of Mad Max. And it's certainly an honour and a pleasure for me to meet people that come through here and appreciate
Thank
Max.
you.
Yeah, and in the same way I do. So.
Adrian, thank you today. It's been wonderful, and I recommend anybody to come and see this. It's just incredible. You're a point to bring it together.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.